Picture this. She gets dozens of messages every single day. Guys complimenting her, making promises, even begging just for a chance to see her. It's noise, endless sweet talk. But then, in the middle of that flood, your name pops up, and she stops. She reads. She replies. Why? Not because you're better looking, not because you're richer, not because you're more charming. It's because you're one of the rare men who doesn't lower himself to chase. You're not competing. You're not begging. You're grounded. And that's exactly what makes you dangerous. Unforgettable. In this video, I'm going to show you 10 Stoic principles that make a woman not only notice you, but stay captivated by your presence even when she has countless other options. Don't compete. Stay on your throne. Have you ever noticed, when it comes to relationships, most men approach them the exact same way? They step into it like they're signing up for a competition. They try to stand out by buying more gifts, texting more often, making more promises, all just to prove they're worthy enough to be chosen. But here's the harsh truth. The harder they try to compete, the weaker they look. A Stoic man sees life through a different lens. He doesn't treat love like some contest where the prize goes to the one who tries the hardest. He doesn't step down from his throne to beg for attention because he knows his throne wasn't given. It was built through discipline, built through consistency, built through years of shaping himself. And once you've earned that throne, you don't need anyone's validation to sit on it. I want you to picture this: a king sitting in his palace. He doesn't leave his throne, knocking on every door, asking people to recognize him as king. No, people come into his palace. They follow his rules. They feel his power simply through his presence. That's exactly how a Stoic man treats love. He doesn't adjust himself just to be accepted. He doesn't bend to a woman's moods just to stay in her favor. He builds his world, and if she wants to be part of it, she has to choose to step in. Most men fall into the trap of thinking, if I just try harder, she'll love me more. So they cancel their plans. They set aside their passions. They pour all their energy into proving their worth. But what really happens, they lose themselves. They've stepped off their throne and handed it to someone else. And once you give that up, you don't just lose her respect, you lose yourself. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "A man of worth doesn't need to shout to be noticed. His steadiness speaks for him." And that couldn't be more true in love. When you hold your ground, you send a powerful message: I'm not here to compete. I'm here to live my purpose. You can join me if you want, but I will not stop walking my path just to wait for you. Ask yourself honestly, if she doesn't text back, do you lose focus at work? If she cancels plans, do you skip the gym if she walks away? Do you abandon your drive to grow? If the answer is yes, then you're living in her world, not yours. You've surrendered your throne without even realizing it. A Stoic man knows love isn't about competing to win. It's about choosing to walk together. He doesn't prove his value through desperate gestures. He lets his life, his discipline, his consistency speak for him. And that self-mastery, that quiet power, is what earns respect. Think about it. Women may smile when they get flowers, gifts, or compliments. But what really keeps them around is the feeling of stepping into a man's world that is steady, complete, and unshakable. A man who doesn't need her to exist, but who welcomes her to walk beside him. And don't get it twisted, staying on your throne doesn't mean being cold, distant, or uncaring. Quite the opposite. It's the highest form of care, because you're not pretending, not performing, not reshaping yourself just to win approval. You're offering the most authentic, strongest version of yourself. And that authenticity is magnetic. In today's world where social media makes everyone compete for attention, this message is even more critical. You'll see thousands of men flashing wealth, muscles, cars, trying to be noticed. But the Stoic man doesn't need to flex. He only needs one thing to be consistent with who he is. Remember, your throne is your life. The habits you build, the career you chase, the passions you keep alive. That's what makes you different. And if a woman wants to walk with you, she has to step into that world. If she doesn't, you still keep moving. You don't slow down. You don't stop. Epictetus once said, "If you want respect, stop trying to change others. Change yourself." And when you stay on your throne, you stop needing outside validation. You already carry all the respect you need from yourself. And that's the foundation that makes others see you differently. So the next time you feel the urge to compete, pause. Ask yourself, am I stepping off my throne just to be recognized? If the answer is yes, step back. Return to your discipline, your habits, your world. Because only when you sit firmly on your throne do you become the kind of man no one can replace. That's the message I want to leave with you today. In love, as in life, don't compete to be chosen. Build a world strong enough that others crave to be part of it. Stay on your throne. Live with purpose. Live with calm. Live with discipline. Because at the end of the day, true attraction doesn't come from how hard you try to be noticed. It comes from the courage to live fully as yourself. Build an unshakable life. You know, most men step into a relationship carrying a quiet fear, a fear of losing her, a fear of not being enough, a fear that if they don't make her the center of their universe, she'll walk away. And from that fear, they start abandoning their own lives just to fit into hers. But stop for a second and really think about it. What actually draws a woman in? Is it when you revolve your entire world around her? Or is it when you're already walking a path so strong, so purposeful, that she only has two choices: step in and walk with you, or step aside and realize she can't keep up? A Stoic man understands this. His life is the foundation. His goals, his discipline, his inner richness, that's what cannot be shaken. And that steadiness is what makes him attractive. Picture it like building a house. If the foundation is weak, even a small storm will tear it apart. But if the foundation is stone, no matter how fierce the storm outside, the house stands firm. Your life works the same way. If your habits, your goals, your values are strong, then no missed call, no unanswered text, no flash of anger from a woman can ever break you. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Don't let the joy or sorrow of others define your existence. Live by reason, live by principle, and you will not be moved." That is the Stoic mindset. And in love, that mindset is your hidden weapon. Here's the truth: women don't want to be your only purpose. It sounds paradoxical, but it's real. When you make her your whole world, you don't create love, you create pressure. She feels trapped, burdened by a role too heavy. But when you have your own rich life, your work, your mission, your passions, your friendships, your growth, she feels like she's being invited into a world that already has strength. And let's be honest, what's more attractive? A man who's always waiting by the phone, desperate for her reply, or a man who's building projects, training his body, learning every day, calm and steady, whether someone's by his side or not? An unshakable man isn't cold, he's purposeful. He doesn't check his phone 10 times a day to see if she's thinking about him. He has a schedule, a discipline, a structure he's built and lived by for years. And that sends a clear message: I will not collapse just because one person walks away. Epictetus once said, "No one can take your freedom unless you hand them the key." When you build a strong life, you never hand that key over. You keep it for yourself. And that's exactly what makes you trustworthy in her eyes. Because here's the thing, women don't test men to destroy them. They test because deep down they want to know, are you strong enough to stand? Every time you cancel the gym, drop your goals, abandon your path just to please her, you're sending the opposite message. I can't stand on my own. And that doesn't make her feel special. It makes her lose respect. A Stoic man knows real love doesn't come from stopping. It comes from continuing to walk. The more you build your life with passion, with purpose, with constant growth, the more she wants to be part of that journey. She's not looking for a man to cage her. She's looking for a path to be carried forward with. And if you want proof, just look around. The man who stops, who competes for attention, is forgotten. But the man who keeps moving forward, without chasing, without begging, he's the one she never forgets. Not because he tried so hard to impress, but because he lived like fire. And anyone who came near him could feel the heat. Building an unshakable life isn't just about attracting women, it's about freeing yourself. When your foundation is discipline, passion, and values, you stop fearing who comes or goes, because you know your life continues solid, steady, complete. Ask yourself, if tomorrow she left, what would you still have? If the answer is emptiness, you need to rebuild. But if the answer is your mission, your career, your inner peace, your journey still moving forward, then you've already grasped the Stoic spirit. And remember this, the man who is respected is not the one a woman cannot leave. It's the one she knows if she leaves, he will still stand tall. That's true strength. That's the Stoic man. And that's the very steadiness that makes her choose to stay. Detachment, the invisible attraction. Have you ever wondered, why is it that some men, the quieter they are, the less they try, the more women get curious, while others, the ones texting nonstop, showering her with constant attention, slowly fade into the background? The answer lies in a concept that feels like a paradox: detachment. But don't get it twisted. Detachment doesn't mean being cold. It's not fake indifference. And it's not pretending to be distant just to make her chase. Detachment, in the Stoic sense, means you genuinely don't need outside validation to feel complete. You don't need her instant reply to feel worthy. You don't need compliments to feel good enough. You don't need her approval to live the way you believe. And from that foundation, you become different. Picture this, a man sitting in a cafe. His phone buzzes. It's a text from her. Instead of panicking, instead of dropping everything to respond like thousands of other men would, he takes a sip of his coffee, turns another page of his book. Not because he doesn't care, but because his life doesn't revolve around a single text. He cares, but he's not dependent. That's detachment. When you don't flinch at her silence, her moods, or her little tests. You send a powerful message: I care, but I don't depend. I'm here, but I'm still myself. And that's what makes you reliable. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "True freedom comes when you no longer depend on what lies outside your control. You can't control her reactions, her emotions, or her actions, but you can control yours. And when you master that, you don't just become attractive, you become unshakable." See, women test men by instinct, not to break them, but to measure them. When she goes silent, she wants to see if you panic. When she gets upset, she wants to see if you lose your calm. When she changes plans last minute, she wants to see if you'll throw away your whole life to follow. And this is where detachment becomes your invisible power. Because real connection doesn't come from you reacting instantly, bending over backward, fixing everything. It comes when she realizes he'll still be himself, with or without me. And the irony is, when she sees you're not dependent, that's when she actually craves connection with you. Think about it. What's more magnetic than a man who stays calm under pressure? A man who doesn't lose focus because of a few moments of silence? A man who doesn't explode just because she's testing his patience? That kind of man is rare. He doesn't need to prove, doesn't need to beg. Epictetus reminded his students, if something disturbs your peace, it's not the thing itself, it's your judgment of it. When you live by that, all the emotional games, the silence, the drama, they lose their power over you, and that calmness becomes the root of your attraction. Now, let's be clear, detachment is not an act. It's not some trick to make her insecure. If you're pretending to be detached while secretly panicking inside, she'll feel it immediately. Humans are wired to sense insecurity, which means true detachment can't be faked. It has to come from inner wholeness. So how do you build that wholeness? The answer is simple but not easy. Build a life you don't want to escape from. A life so full that when she doesn't text back, you still have a dozen things that matter more. A life so grounded that when she's upset, you can still train, work, read, walk without your world collapsing. When you have purpose, when you're walking your own path, detachment happens naturally. You don't need to fake strength. You are strong because you never put your life in someone else's hands. Ask yourself, if she disappeared tomorrow, what would you still have? If your answer is emptiness, you're living in dependence. But if your answer is your work, your mission, your passions, your friendships, and most of all, your inner peace, then you already understand detachment. And here's the paradox when you live like that. She doesn't want to leave because she knows you don't need her, but you still choose her, and that choice makes her value rise. So remember this, a Stoic man isn't attractive because he plays games or creates distance. He's attractive because he doesn't get shaken. Silence doesn't scare him. Anger doesn't control him. Tests don't make him lose his balance. And in that steadiness, he becomes an anchor, an invisible force of attraction that women simply cannot resist. Speak to her mind, not her body. Have you noticed something? In today's world of social media, millions of selfies, endless streams of "you're so pretty," "you look amazing" compliments on appearance have almost lost their weight. Women hear them every single day, to the point where they don't touch the heart anymore. It's like a song that's been played 1,000 times. Familiar, maybe pleasant, but forgettable. Here's the hard truth. Most men miss complimenting a woman's looks might make her smile for a second, but it rarely makes her remember you, because you're just echoing what thousands of others have already said. The Stoic man understands this. If you want to truly reach a woman's mind and heart, you have to go beyond the surface, past the curves, the hair, the sparkle in her eyes. You have to listen for what's behind it. You have to notice what others overlook. Imagine this instead of saying, "You're beautiful" way. You look into her eyes and say, "I can tell you've carried a lot of responsibility, a lot of pressure, and yet you're still standing strong. I respect that." In that instant, the atmosphere changes. She pauses. She looks at you differently. Because you didn't flatter the shell, you touched the part of her. Even she sometimes forgets her inner world. And what happens in her mind? You become rare. Not because you're slick with words, but because you proved you see more than the surface. You don't just look at the picture, you read the story behind it. Seneca once wrote, "People don't remember long what pleases their eyes, but they never forget what moves their soul." That's the key. When you learn to speak to the mind, you plant an unforgettable experience. I remember a friend telling me about dating a woman everyone called perfectly beautiful. Of course, she got endless compliments every day. But what stuck with her wasn't another "you're gorgeous." It was when he said, "I feel like, even though you smile a lot, behind that smile there are days you're so exhausted you don't even want to get out of bed. And I respect the strength it takes to keep going." That line stopped her cold, because in that moment, she was seen, not just looked at. You see, women don't lack compliments. What they lack is understanding. And a Stoic man knows understanding doesn't come from talking more. It comes from observing, listening, and sensing. It's about paying attention to the details everyone else misses. She pauses before answering. That tells you the truth is more complicated than her words. She laughs, but the smile feels a little forced. That tells you there's pain beneath it. If you're sharp enough to notice and sincere enough to honor it, you'll be allowed into parts of her soul most men will never touch. And the point isn't to manipulate or to score points. It's because you're genuinely curious, genuinely interested in the human being in front of you, not just the image. That kind of curiosity is what makes you unforgettable. So ask yourself, do you want to be just another forgettable compliment, or the one voice that echoes in her memory years later? Do you want her to remember you as one of the thousands who said you're beautiful, or as the rare man who dared to look straight into her soul? Stoicism teaches us this real strength doesn't lie in possession, but in understanding. The Stoic man doesn't make a woman the center of his world. He makes his presence a place safe enough for her to reveal her true self. And when a woman feels understood, when she feels truly seen, that's when she attaches, not to the body, but to the depth. Because here's the truth, she might forget your face in a few years. She might forget the gift you gave, but she will never forget the moment you spoke the exact word she was hiding in her heart. That is the power of speaking to her mind, not her body. And here's the paradox when you stop trying so hard to impress with shallow words, and instead truly learn to listen. You don't just make her remember, you make her trust. Trust that you're not like the others. Trust that you're not here to possess, but to connect. So remember this, the man who only touches her body might make her tremble for a moment, but the man who touches her mind, and more importantly, her soul, stays with her for life. That is the Stoic way, not chasing what is fleeting, but speaking straight to what lasts. Mystery creates lasting attraction. Have you ever wondered why some men who don't say much, who don't show up all the time, somehow linger in a woman's memory, while others, the ones who text her every day, who constantly make their presence known, slowly fade into the background? The answer is simple. Mystery creates lasting attraction. The man who's always available, always ready, always there the moment he's called on the surface, it looks like care. But in reality, it lowers his value. Because when something is too easy to get, it loses its appeal. Like a song that plays on repeat. At first you love it, but soon it becomes background noise. On the other hand, the man who knows how to create space, the man who leaves a little silence, a little unsaid, that's the man she thinks about long after the conversation ends. By not flooding her with details, by not laying it all out, you leave gaps for her imagination to fill. And sometimes, her imagination is far more powerful than anything you could have said. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "What is left unsaid often carries more weight than what is spoken." The same is true in relationships. You don't need to reveal everything. By holding back, you protect your own privacy, but more importantly, you give her something precious: curiosity. And curiosity is the doorway to attraction. When she leaves a conversation asking herself, what was he thinking? Why did he pause? Why didn't he rush to explain? That question keeps you alive in her mind long after you're gone. Remember, you don't need to always be present to be remembered. In fact, it's the selective absence that makes your presence valuable. Like the moon, it doesn't shine all day, but when it does, the whole sky stops to notice. Epictetus once said, "It's not speaking much that makes you heard. It's when your silence carries weight." Knowing when to speak and when to hold back turns your presence into an experience, not just a habit. And here's the difference. Mystery isn't a trick. It's not disappearing on purpose just to make her nervous. That's manipulation. Mystery comes from having a life so wide, so rich, so full that you don't need to put it all on display at once. You've got a career to build, goals to chase, passions, joys, layers of your identity that others can only uncover over time, which means every time she meets you, she discovers something new, like turning the pages of a book, each chapter deeper than the last. So ask yourself, do you want to be like a social media status always there, predictable, consumed in a swipe? Or do you want to be like a novel, something that makes her wait, something she can't stop thinking about long after she closes the page? The Stoic man chooses the second path. He doesn't rush to prove himself in a few days. He lets curiosity build. He knows what comes easy is forgotten fast, but what takes time to discover lasts. And here's the paradox. The less you try to reveal everything, the more magnetic you become. Not because you're loud, but because you're quiet. Not because you're begging to be seen, but because she can't look away. So remember, this lasting attraction doesn't come from being constantly present. It comes from leaving space, from holding back enough to invite her in, to make her want to discover more. In love, as in life, a mysterious man isn't hiding. He's simply too deep to be understood all at once. And it's that depth. That's what makes you unforgettable. Scarcity turns you into a legend. There's a truth most people don't want to admit. When you're always available, always ready, always replying instantly, your value starts to drop. Anything that comes too easy eventually gets taken for granted. Your time is your most precious asset. Once it's gone, it never comes back. And the way you protect your time tells the world exactly how much you're worth. The Stoic man understands this. He doesn't rush to answer every text. He doesn't drop his entire schedule because of a random call. He doesn't let others decide when he shows up and when he disappears. And something strange happens when you're no longer easy to reach. Every moment with you becomes rare. When you reply, she reads every word carefully. When you show up, you have her full attention. When you're there, she knows she's experiencing something she can't find everywhere. Think about it. Do you really treasure a glass of water in the middle of a city? Probably not. But in the desert, every drop becomes gold. Scarcity is what turns the ordinary into the legendary. It's the same in love. The man who shows up too often, too predictably, gets labeled ordinary. The man who guards his time, his energy, his presence, he becomes rare. He becomes an experience she can't easily replace. Epictetus taught, the value of a thing isn't in how much of it there is, but in the fact that it can be lost. When your presence isn't always available, that's when she begins to appreciate it. That's when you stop being just a man and start becoming a memory, a mark, a legend. Now you might think, but don't women want attention? Yes, they want attention, but they will never respect a man who doesn't respect himself. If you drop everything just to chase her, you're really saying, my time means nothing. Take as much as you want, and nobody treasures what's too easy to own. But when you live with clear purpose training, learning, working, growing, you send a different message. My time is rare. If you want it, you'd better be worth it. And paradoxically, that's when she wants it most. Here's the thing, you don't have to fake being busy. If you're truly building a rich, meaningful life, you'll naturally become scarce. You don't need to disappear to manipulate. You just need to honor your priorities, your health, your mission, your career, your mind. That's what makes your presence rare. That's what turns every moment with you into something unforgettable. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Think of each day as a complete life. If you waste it, you waste the whole." With that mindset, you stop throwing away your days just to please someone. You invest your time into what creates lasting value. And when you do, your scarcity becomes magnetic. Want to see the difference? Look at two men. One is always available, always ready to change his plans the second she calls. At first, she might like it, but eventually, he becomes predictable boring. The other man, he's busy, not because he's faking it, but because he's building something bigger than himself. And when he gives her time, she knows she's stepping into a rare moment in a meaningful life. That second man, that's the man who becomes a legend in her mind. So be honest with yourself. Do you want to be the man who's always around, but easily forgotten? Or the man who's rare, whose every presence leaves a mark? Scarcity isn't a game. It's not a trick to make her nervous. It's the natural result of living with purpose and value. When your life is full, you don't need to show up everywhere. Your very absence speaks for you. And that's when you stop being just another date, another memory. You become an experience, something rare, something she can't find in anyone else. And when a woman feels you're irreplaceable, you step out of the category of ordinary men. You become a legend in her mind. The emotionally grounded man is the anchor. Have you ever noticed this? In love, in relationships, even in daily life, women often test men. Not because they want to create chaos, but because deep down they're asking, "Are you steady enough for me to lean on?" And here's where the difference shows. Most men, when tested, overreact. They explode in anger, argue endlessly, scramble to prove they're right, or swing to the other extreme, panicking and overpleasing just to calm her down. But the Stoic man is different. He stays calm, even when things get messy. And it's that calmness that makes him the anchor. Think about a storm at sea. It can sweep away small boats, but the ones with a solid anchor remain unmoved. The Stoic man is that anchor. While emotions rise and tempests roar, he stands still, unshaken. And when a woman feels this, she instantly knows, this is someone I can trust. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you're blown around by every wind, you'll never be your own master. Stand firm like a cliff against which the waves break and shatter." This isn't abstract philosophy, it's practical. When you hold your calm, you don't just prove strength, you provide safety. And safety is what women crave more than any promise. Picture it, she gets upset over something small. Instead of matching her fire, you listen. Your tone stays even. You don't add fuel to the flames. She goes silent, waiting to see if you'll spiral into panic. Instead of blowing up her phone, you give her space. You carry on with your life. In those moments, you're not only protecting your own peace, you're creating a quiet harbor she can return to. Here's the truth. Women don't respect the man who gets swept up in their emotions. They respect the man who keeps his center, no matter the storm. Epictetus once said, "Don't let another control your soul. They may command your actions, but your inner life is yours alone." When you master this, you stop being easy to manipulate, easy to derail. You become steady. You become the anchor. And remember, being emotionally grounded doesn't mean being cold. It's not pretending you don't care or shutting down. It means knowing when to respond and when to stay silent. It means understanding that not every argument requires a victory. Sometimes, your silence is the loudest answer. Ask yourself, do you want to be the blade of grass swaying in every breeze, or the rooted tree people cling to when the winds rage? If you overreact to every test, you reveal you can't even control yourself. But if you hold steady, you show mastery over your inner world, and that's real strength. In today's world where people lose their tempers over a comment online or spiral because of a cold glance, an emotionally grounded man is rare. He becomes like an island in the ocean. The more waves crash, the more his endurance shines. Yes, women may be drawn to looks, money, or charm, but what makes them stay, what makes them respect, is the feeling of safety. And safety only comes from a man who's emotionally grounded. Marcus Aurelius used to remind himself each morning, "Today I will meet people who are angry, ungrateful, selfish, but I will not let them rob me of my peace." You will face the same every day, people who test your patience, moments that tempt you to lose yourself. But if you keep your center, you don't just win, you show others what true strength looks like. So remember this, the Stoic man doesn't need to shout to be heard. He doesn't need to react to prove himself. He lets his calm speak for him. And it's that calmness that makes him the anchor, the steady ground every woman is secretly searching for, even if she never admits it. Actions speak louder than words. Have you noticed this? In today's world, words have become cheaper than ever. Anyone can make promises. Anyone can write a few sweet lines, paint a beautiful picture of the future. But how many of those promises are ever kept? How many words still matter after the excitement fades? The Stoic man understands this real value doesn't live in promises, it lives in action. He doesn't need to convince anyone he's strong or reliable. He doesn't need to use words to prove himself. Instead, he proves it by living with discipline, by results, by the consistency he shows day after day, year after year. Seneca once wrote, "Don't talk about philosophy, live it." That's exactly how a Stoic man enters the world. He doesn't spend hours explaining to a woman that he's going to succeed, that he has goals, that he's dependable. He lets his habits, his time, his results speak for him. Picture it. One man says he's going to hit the gym, change his body. But for months, nothing changes except another starting tomorrow post. Meanwhile, another man doesn't say much. He just goes, quietly, day after day. And 6 months later, the results speak louder than anything he could have promised. Which one do you think is truly respected? It's the same in love. A man can say, "I'll always be there for you," but if he loses his temper at the smallest test, how much are his words worth? On the other hand, a man who doesn't make grand promises, but shows up steady, calm, present whenever she truly needs him, that man delivers the strongest message of all. Marcus Aurelius once told himself, "Let your actions define your character. Let your patience, your calm, your discipline speak for you." The Stoic man knows lasting attraction doesn't come from fancy words, it comes from the way you live every single day. And women feel this too. Sure, they might be impressed for a moment by what you say, but what they remember is how you live. Do you keep promises to yourself? Do you stay loyal to your mission? Do you keep moving forward even when nobody is cheering you on? Epictetus said, "Don't boast about how many books you've read. Show me how your life has changed because of them." It's the same with men. Don't boast about what you know or what you plan. Show how your life has been reshaped by discipline, by calmness, by consistency. And here's the paradox when you focus on action. You don't need many words, but when you do speak, your words carry weight because people know your life has already proven them true. So ask yourself, do you want to be the man who says, "I'll change," or the man whose change is undeniable, even without a word? Do you want women to believe you because of your promises, or because of the discipline they see repeated day after day? One day, she may forget the words you once said, but she will never forget the image of you waking up early to train, staying calm in the face of chaos, staying committed to your path. Those are messages stronger than language. And this is what makes the Stoic man different. He doesn't need to impress with words, because his life itself is the impression. So remember, actions matter more than words. Let your daily discipline be your language. Let your results be your declaration. And let your consistency send the clearest message of all. This is who I am, and I don't need to convince anyone of it. Boundaries, the highest form of self-respect. Have you ever wondered why some men, the more they give in, the more they try to please, end up being respected less, while other men, the ones who don't bend so easily, seem to naturally command respect from women? The answer comes down to two simple words: boundaries. The Stoic man understands this truth. If you don't set boundaries for yourself, someone else will. And once you let others decide how you live, how much you give, when you stay silent, you've given away the greatest power. You have the power to rule your own life. Epictetus once said, "No one can harm you unless you allow it." And that allowing happens the moment you let someone cross lines that should have never been crossed. Now, boundaries don't mean selfishness. They don't mean you stop caring. Boundaries simply mean clarity, knowing what you accept and what you don't. Just as a nation needs borders to protect its integrity, a man needs boundaries to protect his self-respect. Picture this: you cancel your workout because she wants to see you right now. You abandon your work just because she asks for hours of attention. You say yes to every request, even when it derails your own plans. It may look romantic on the surface, but the message you're sending is this: my time, my energy, my principles, they can all be rewritten just for you. And that's the fastest way to lose respect. Now look at the man who knows how to say no. He doesn't say it to rebel, but to protect what matters: his health, his mission, his peace of mind. He can love you deeply, but he won't let love become the excuse to abandon discipline. He can care for you, but he won't let that care become dependence. And it's exactly those boundaries that make women respect him, because they know this man doesn't break easily. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The man without principles is like a wanderer in the dark, unable to tell the path from the pit." Boundaries are the torch that lights the way. They show you where to go, and they show others how far they can come. And here's the paradox: the more you give in, the more she tests you. Not because she's cruel, but because she wants to know, is there a line? Is there a point where he'll stand firm and say no? If you never set boundaries, you don't just lose attraction, you lose trust. Because how can she rely on a man who won't even protect himself? Boundaries are also self-care. When you know what you need, you won't let unreasonable demands drain you. When you know your goals, you won't let temporary emotions pull you off track. When you know your value, you won't tolerate disrespect from anyone. Ask yourself, how many times have you said yes just to please someone, only to feel empty and angry at yourself later? How many times have you given too much and realized you had nothing left to hold on to? That's the cost of living without boundaries. The Stoic man chooses differently. He doesn't overpromise, but what he does promise, he delivers. He doesn't give to every demand, but what he does give, he gives freely, fully, without resentment. He knows where the line is. And because of that, what he gives carries far more value than the man who gives without thought. Seneca once said, "No one respects the man who gives away everything, even what should have been kept." You must learn to hold something back for yourself, so that what you give is a gift, not a given. So remember, boundaries aren't walls to push people away. They're balance. They're not rejection. They're respect. They're not about proving you're tough. They're about showing you're wise enough to know what you need and what you deserve. A man who knows how to set boundaries will never be treated lightly. He may not be loved by everyone, but by the ones who matter. He will always be respected. And that quiet respect, that's the hidden power of the Stoic man. Be the one experience she can never replace. Here's something interesting. A woman can meet hundreds of men in her lifetime, She can hear every kind of compliment, every type of story, even go through multiple relationships. But in the end, she only truly remembers a few. And what do those few have in common? It's not the best looks. It's not the biggest bank account. It's not even the sharpest sense of humor. The common thread is this: they gave her an experience no one else could duplicate. That's the secret. The problem isn't whether you can be better than the other men. That path is a trap because there will always be someone younger, richer, more attractive, more entertaining. If you play the comparison game, you lose from the start. The Stoic man knows don't try to be a better copy. Be the one experience she can't find anywhere else. What does that look like? It's the peace she feels around you, the kind of peace no promise could ever buy. It's the depth in the way you listen, the way you notice what she doesn't say. It's the steady presence you bring, where even in chaos, she feels safe. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Live a life where your very presence is impossible to replace." That's the heart of it. You don't need big performances to impress her. You just need to live aligned with your values until your presence itself becomes a place she wants to return to. Think back, maybe you've met someone you still remember years later, not because of what they said, but because of how they made you feel. That feeling, that mix of calm and depth, is unforgettable. In love, the Stoic man doesn't try to dazzle on the spot. He doesn't turn a date into a performance. He turns it into an experience. He lets her leave still carrying a mark in her heart. And when that happens, she might forget 100 faces, but she won't forget you. Epictetus said, "A man's value isn't in what he owns, but in the impact he leaves on another soul." Ordinary men leave stories. The Stoic man leaves a shift in perspective. He doesn't just make a woman see him, he makes her see herself more clearly when she's with him. So who do you want to be? Another safe option she'll eventually forget when life moves on, or the unique experience she carries with her for years. To become that experience, you don't need to be a superhero. You just need to live true to your principles. Don't get pulled into shallow comparisons. Don't chase cheap validation. Build a life full of purpose, discipline, depth. And when a woman enters, you don't bend yourself to fit her, you invite her to walk with you. That's what makes the experience one of a kind. Imagine a simple evening, the two of you on a balcony, saying little, just watching the sunset. Yet the calm that radiates from you turns that quiet moment into a memory that stays. She may have grander dates with others, but it's that moment, the peace that carves itself into her heart, because that peace can't be found elsewhere. And in the end, you realize a sharp truth: she doesn't choose you for the gifts. Gifts can make her smile, but they fade. She doesn't choose you for compliments. She's heard them 1,000 times until they lost their meaning. And she certainly doesn't choose you just because you revolve your world around her. That only makes you replaceable. What makes her choose you is that you are your own world, a world built with discipline, direction, depth, and calm, a rare kind of peace in this noisy age. She chooses you not because you chase her, but because you don't need to. In a world of men desperate for recognition, you're the one who doesn't need approval to know who you are. And that's the Stoic path. You don't chase love, you become the man that love chases. If what I've shared resonates with you, then maybe deep down, you too are searching for the same thing: a life of strength, calm, and unshakable purpose. That is the journey of the Stoic man. And here's the truth: you don't have to walk this path alone. Subscribe to Living Stoic Way. Let every video remind you you're not just living, you're training yourself to become the grounded, free, irreplaceable version of who you were meant to be. So I'll leave you with one question. Do you have the courage to walk the Stoic path, the path where love isn't something you chase, but something that naturally finds you?